I swear he had hollow legs, but I realized that a shifter had to eat almost as twice as much as a normal human when he did shift, because shifting took everything out of them. Come to think of it, I was pretty hungry this morning, although we just had breakfast. I craved some cookies myself. Deal. Within the hour, my kitchen filled with new aromas, and the baked cookie smell had awakened my guests. Or more likely, the sun was going down and they were hungry for their liquid food. I heard the seemingly unsure movements of two bodies shuffling through the dining room and hesitantly poking their heads through the kitchen doorway like a couple of cocker spaniels sniffing. Oi, Heath simpered. I haven't smelled that since I was little. Leif nudged past him, arrowed directly for the refrigerator, opened it, and found what he wanted. He held two of the black bottles of real red out to his brother. Warm or cold? Warm, with a cookie, Heath said. You ass, Leif berated him as he twisted the bottles open and popped them into the microwave. By having regular donors and learning not to take more than a pint at a time, modern vampires no longer killed humans by draining them of their precious blood. Bottled blood was another solution. There were types made from human blood, some was strictly animal blood, and still others were a blend. Those weren't very popular. I could tell by the grimaces the two would make when they drank them. Tremayne Enterprises manufactured Real Red, and from what I understood, since he owned the patent rights to it, it was a moneymaker. The man was a genius. No wonder he was richer than Donald Trump and Oprah combined. I pulled out the last sheet of cookies and set them out to cool a bit before I transferred them onto the cooling racks. I'd made at least 2.5 dozen. Dante had already eaten two and was eyeing a third, glass of milk in hand. Heath closed in and gazed hungrily at the cookies. You can have one if you want, I told him, holding out a plate of still warm cookies to him. Heath gazed at the cookies with obvious longing. The microwave pinged. His brother handed him his bottled blood. I wish I could, but Heath tipped the bottle to his lips. I'm on a strict liquid diet. Wouldn't taste very good, he explained. Vampires' taste buds become more highly developed, strictly for blood. Everything else has no taste, Dante explained. That's okay, I said. It was the thought that counts, right? I asked Heath. Right, he said, and moved along with his brother into the next room to finish their bottled blood. My cookies had turned out beautifully. I scrounged for paper plates in a high cupboard shelf to take some to Mrs. Bench. Grasping the paper plates, I rocked slightly on the chair I used for the stepping stool. Dante grabbed me by the waist and brought me down to the floor in a graceful way. I wanted to turn and hug him, but resisted. When I looked up at him, he stepped back. Hiding my hurt feelings, I turned back to the counter and the cookies. I want to get these to Mrs. Bench while they're still warm, I said, my voice controlled but feeling tightness in my throat. Those all for her? Heath had longing back in his eyes. Yep, I wanted to thank her for this morning. I don't know how you thank a witch for magically saving your butt, but this is the first time I've had someone do that for me. Peanut butter cookies should get pretty high marks, I would guess, Leif said while his brother nodded approvingly. I was glad the blood had softened his sour mood some. Leif's moods changed as rapidly as a chameleon's skin color. I was glad to not be alone with him. I trusted that we would always have a chaperone because I knew he would cross the line. I piled a dozen cookies on a plate, covered it in plastic wrap. Dante and I threw on our coats and walked out into the chilly autumn late afternoon. The sun was at the horizon, and the sky was becoming dark in the east. I threw Dante a worried look. Am I going to change again? I don't know. He told me that born wares had to go through the transformation all 3 nights of the full moon. He wasn't sure about a bitten person. I hoped I wasn't going to go through that 3 nights in a row. Once across the road, we shuffled through crisp, fallen leaves, ones that Mrs. Bench hadn't gotten in her annual leaf-burning day, back in October, and strode up her cement steps to her open porch. It felt strange being here. I couldn't remember having been on Mrs. Bench's porch since my brother and I went trick or treating when I was small. I remembered her always as being old back then. I never knew her real hair color. It was always white.